Thank you. Good morning. You don't have to spend long in Iceland before you realize that imagination is not a luxury here. It's a survival tool. Take the rocks, for instance. Not the dramatic ones, not the glaciers or the volcanoes or the sea stacks rising like ancient guardians from the surf. Just ordinary rocks. The boulders that you pass on the side of a road, tucked into moss, tucked into the shadows. That lumpy little rock might look like nothing to you. But to someone in Iceland, it could be something very different indeed. It might be an elf house. It might be a troll that was turned to stone at sunrise. Or simply a reminder that the land has its own opinion and sometimes it's best not to argue. Because that's the thing about Iceland. It's not just shaped by nature, it's shaped by imagination. And in return, imagination here has been shaped by nature, by the need to explain what can't be controlled, to soften what can't be changed. This is where the real and the ridiculous meet for coffee. And if you think I'm exaggerating, then check this. In 2007, a national survey by the University of Iceland found that while only a small percentage of people said that they definitely believed in elves, a much larger number, over half, said that they wouldn't deny the possibility. In other words, in Iceland, it's perfectly normal to say, well, I don't believe in elves, but I wouldn't want to upset them. That's not superstition, that's diplomacy. If a rock is in the way, maybe it's because it's meant to be there. Maybe we don't need to move it. Maybe we need to move us. It's a very Icelandic mindset. Respect the rock. Respect the land. You never know what it's really up to. And it's not just big rocks on building sites that get this sort of treatment. You'll find smaller signs of this mindset all across the country if you know where to look. In some gardens, you might spot little clusters of stones arranged just so, or cute little miniature houses. They're not there for landscaping. They're not decorations. These are alfasteina, fairy stones, quiet offerings to the hidden folk, a kind of spiritual no parking sign that says, we see you, this little bit of land, this is yours. It's not just old superstitions kept alive by a handful of eccentrics. Perfectly modern Icelanders, teachers, lawyers, mechanics will still think twice about mowing over that strange rock that's always been there. Not necessarily because they believe it's magical, but because, well, why risk it? In Kópavogur, which is just south of Reykjavik, they were working on a big infrastructure project, building a new highway, and construction was riddled with issues, and the locals were protesting too. Not because of environmental issues, not because of zoning or any of that typical not in my backyard sort of stuff, but because this new road was going to slice straight through a large lava rock that was known as Elfhol, Elf Hill. And that was the problem. The new road was going to bulldoze through a local elf community. And after months of delays and growing media attention, the Icelandic Road and Coastal Administration decided to move the rock very carefully, respectfully, and with a folklorist present to make sure that the hidden people weren't offended. The rock was relocated nearby, and according to reports, the construction mishaps stopped. In Reykjavik, there's even an elf school that you can attend. It's called Alfaskólinn. It's the Elf School of Iceland, and it offers half-day seminars on the hidden people, complete with maps, folklore, eyewitness accounts, and pancakes. The headmaster, Magnus Skaffonidsen, has been collecting elf stories for over 30 years, and he claims to have interviewed more than 900 Icelanders who've had their own personal encounters with the Huldufolk. And you'd be amazed at the different people who, in all sincerity, recount their experiences with the elves. And these aren't just dotty neighbors who might have had a little bit too much to drink and thought next door's cat was actually a troll. Among the interviews recounted in the school's collection are testimonies of police officers, even a former member of parliament. Though I guess a politician spinning a story is nothing new. Anyway, here in Iceland, imagination and reality share a fence line, and nobody wants to be a bad neighbor. So where does all of this come from? Why does Iceland, of all places, hold on to this delicate thread between the mystical and the mundane? Well, to understand that, we need to talk about stories. We need to talk about sagas. Not fairy tales, not bedtime stories, sagas. These are some of the oldest written narratives in Europe. Tales of outlaws and settlers, feuds and blood debts, doomed love and stubborn pride. They're the kind of stories that are so deadpan that they make Shakespeare sound like he's trying too hard. They were first written down in the 13th and 14th centuries, but the stories themselves have been being passed down orally for centuries before that. Around fires, in turf houses, through long winters where entertainment options were fairly limited unless you were particularly fond of knitting in the dark. And here's what's remarkable. Iceland has one of the highest rates of literacy in the world and has had for centuries. Even in the 18th century, while much of Europe was still really struggling to educate the working classes, Icelanders were expected to read, recite, even to write their own sagas. This is a country built on words. When the rest of the world was building castles, Iceland was building character arcs. And the sagas weren't just entertainment. They were cultural memory. They explained how a farm got its name, or why that ridge over there is cursed, or who your cousin's great-great-grandfather insulted during a sheep dispute in 1043. They gave meaning to the land, meaning to the weather, to the sense of being Icelandic. And they weren't always realistic. A saga might begin with 3 generations of very ordinary farmers, and then suddenly there's a sorcerer, or there's a sea monster, or a ghost in the bathhouse. And everyone just rolls with it. Because in Iceland, that line between the natural and the supernatural has always been less of a line, more a politely negotiated blur. The novelist Sarah Moss lived in Iceland for a bit, and after living here, she put it perfectly. She said, "There's a social tolerance here for imagination. You don't have to believe in something for it to be part of the story. You don't have to destroy the story just because it's not true." And that's the trick, really. It's not about literal belief. It's about cultural permission, about creating space for things that might not be entirely explainable, but are still deeply felt. And that tradition hasn't gone away. Today, Iceland still has the highest number of authors per capita in the world. 1 in 10 Icelanders will publish a book in their lifetime. Just think about that. 1 in 10. In other places, you're lucky if 1 in 10 people read a book. In Iceland, they write them. And there's even a special name for the publishing season. See, special name. Isn't that nice? So special. Jóla flooded. The Christmas book flood. In the lead up to the holidays, bookshops fill with new titles as people give each other books as gifts on Christmas Eve, then spend the night reading in bed with a cup of hot chocolate. Tell me that isn't the most Icelandic thing you've ever heard. And the kinds of stories being written, they're not just sagas rehashed. They're detective novels, sci-fi, memoirs, poems. But they all seem to have that same thread running through them. A deep connection to place, a willingness to let the strange and the sacred sit side by side. Whether it's Halldór Laxness, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature for turning the Icelandic soul into international art. Or it's a teenager writing her first novella in a fishing village cafe. There's this shared sense that stories matter, that words can make sense of a world that sometimes defies logic, that imagination isn't something you grow out of, but something you grow into. And perhaps most importantly, that your landscape isn't just something that you walk across, it's something you can talk with. But of course, not all Icelandic creativity comes out in epic poetry or sculpted lava. Sometimes it comes out as deadpan humor, so dry it should come with a drought warning. This is a country where the mayor of Reykjavik once ran for office as a punk clown and got elected. His campaign platform included free towels at swimming pools and a drug-free parliament by 2020. When asked what his qualifications were, he replied, "None, I'm a comedian, this is a joke." The punchline? He ended up doing a pretty good job. And you'll see that kind of humor everywhere here. Subtle, self-aware, and deeply woven into Icelandic life. It's part of how people here cope with hardship. Long winters, volcanic eruptions, collapsing banks. You can't change that. You might as well laugh at it. Road signs in the middle of nowhere sometimes carry unofficial additions, like a beware of the elves warning or a sheep with sunglasses. Even the Christmas traditions get a twist here. Iceland doesn't just have Santa Claus. It has 13 Yule lads, mischievous troll boys who visit children one by one in the nights leading up to Christmas. Their names include Spoon Licker, Door Slammer, and Sausage Swiper. And they're all descended from a cannibalistic mountain troll mother. Festive, right? But it makes sense, really. In a place where life has always been uncertain, where a sudden storm or a failed crop could mean disaster, humor isn't just entertainment, it's insulation. It's the wool sweater for the soul. Expect the unexpected, respect the land, and when in doubt, add a joke. I do wonder if I might myself be a little Icelandic. Anyway, let's open up the portal and we'll collect our next two ports of call, Djupivogur and Akureyri. Djupivogur sits on Iceland's east coast. It's tucked between jagged mountains and a broad glacial bay that seems too still for such a wild place. It's quiet here, deliberately so. This is the country's officially recognized Cheetah Slow. That's a global movement that values community, tradition, and taking life at a human pace. And people here have always lived in tune with the land and the sea. Fishing, yes, but also storytelling, wool, weather watching. It's the kind of place where nothing happens too fast, but where everything is quietly steeped in meaning. Resilience, the calm that comes just from knowing your place in the world. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, and it's a tender port. It's our only tender port in Iceland. The rest will all be docks. And what we're going to do, we're going to come up alongside on one of these finger piers. You'll come up the ramp, you'll take a left turn, and along this wooden pier, and at the end, you've already arrived in the town. It's not big. But everything that you would want in terms of these facilities that I've highlighted here are in that building that you can see, the sort of low reddish building. So that's where you can get a cafe, that's where you can get some local information, the toilet's in there, there's a little shop in there. So that's your closest, and given that it is just at the exit of the port, I have included that as port facilities. Let's have a look at it on a map. So we're looking at just under a mile tender ride in. That's going to take roughly 15 minutes here. The ship will be on the other side of the breakwater. And then we're coming in to the finger pier there. The area inside the blue square is what you could see in that first photograph. So very, very close to the pier area, so much so that I include that as just the port area. All right, let's go into our top 8. A short stroll from the harbour in Djupivogur, you will spot something unexpected. A long row of oversized stone eggs, each perched carefully on its own concrete pedestal. And this outdoor artwork is called Eggin í Gledvik, the eggs of Merry Bay. It was created by an Icelandic artist, Sigurður Gudmundsson, and each of these 34 eggs represents a different species of bird that nests in the surrounding area. They've been here since 2009, and they still haven't hatched. And if you continue on from the eggs, you arrive at a field, you cross the field, and you'll then arrive at a stumpy, bright orange lighthouse on a rocky reach. It overlooks the mouth of the harbour. It was built in 1922. It's painted a classic Icelandic orange, and this is perhaps the most underwhelming yet fun lighthouse in the world. It's 1 story high, and there is a metal ladder on the outside welcoming you up to a balcony where you can then peek inside the glass room at the top and get great photos out for the view. It's a metal ladder. It's cold on your hands, but it's not very far up, and so a lot of people will climb up, and you're very welcome, by the way, to climb up and take in the views. And if you bring a rag with you, you can polish the glass at the same time. Let's go right back to the port for a minute, because immediately as you set off that tender pier, you're facing that long wooden building that I showed you a glimpse of in the picture, and it is worth popping inside for 2 reasons. The first is the local museum, which is free to visit, and it's got an eclectic collection of bits and bobs. Everything just connects in some way to the region's history and culture. And the second reason, and perhaps slightly more popular, is the cafe. A warm space with good amount of seating and local snacks there for lunch or a morning coffee. And they've got a shop too, if you want to buy a local souvenir, like a miniature granite egg, for example. The other museum in town is a private collection of stones and minerals. And let me tell you, the people around these parts take their rocks very seriously. You'll see plenty of rock gardens as you walk around town. There's one in particular on the approach to the eggs, if you're walking along the waterfront route, that is incredible. It's well worth stopping for a photo. But this museum is your best place to see a large collection of rocks inside. There's not much, actually I don't think there's anything, by way of interpretative signage or explanation, but the owner of the collection gives a very enthusiastic collection tour. So I would give about 5.5 hours to have a look around this one-room museum. But really, this port is best enjoyed outside. How you prefer to do that is obviously up to you. But the top 2 ways to see it are to go hiking or biking. And you can rent local bikes for about 7,000 kroner from local private tour operators for 6 hours. You get 6-hour half-day hire. And you head out on well-marked tracks and trails, or you could just stick to the roads, actually. There's really not very much traffic here. Actually, my favorite feature of Djupivogur is actually something quite mundane. I just think it's so funny. They have a zebra crossing. They have fewer cars than I have showers in a year. And yet they have a zebra crossing. And here's the best part. They only have a sidewalk on one side of the road. So it's a zebra crossing to nowhere. And so given that these are my top highlights of the port, I highly recommend visiting the zebra crossing, maybe even walking across it. But then do remember to look both ways and to walk back safely across, because you only have the sidewalk on one side, but obviously look for any oncoming traffic. I have spent hours pondering the existence of this road decoration. And I've come to the conclusion that it's either been installed to teach local children how to use a zebra crossing in case they move somewhere a little bigger in the future, or the local council had too much budget left over one year and they had to use it or lose it. Anyway, hours of fun right in the middle of the road. Just look both ways first. One of the things you'll spot when you're walking around town, especially if you are heading out to see the eggs or the lighthouse, is an old commercial storage site. Big, rusting, cylindrical tanks which used to store urine. Anyway, one of them has been repurposed as an art centre. So let yourself in, and you might be surprised as to what you see or hear. Last time I was here, they were hosting a candlelit concert inside one of the tanks. But even if nothing is going on while we're there, it's still fun to just let yourself in to see inside these giant tanks that, let's be honest, in most places are totally locked off from public access. And my final tip for Djupivogur, if you want to feel a bit of adventure and you feel like taking a tour boat across to an island, the island that you'll see on our port side as we sail in is Peipi. And if you take an hour's boat ride out there, you'll be greeted by another stumpy orange lighthouse, this one built in 1938, as well as a small black and white wooden church, and lots of cute puffins, which you'll have the opportunity to eat in Reykjavik. The island itself is lovely to walk around, so another top outdoor hiking option. But if you are heading out there, remember two things. First, what time you need to come back. And second, dress really warm, because the winds on the boat and on the island can be really chilly. Let's put all of those on a map for you. You can see number 5 appears a few times on the map, because really what I'm suggesting here is you go out in any direction here and you're going to have a lovely hike or indeed a cycle ride. The closest one is at number 5. Number 5 is a really nice option for a short hike, because next to number 5 here is a hotel which has a restaurant. So you could grab a lunch there, and then it's a campsite. And you can just go into the campsite. It's up a little hill, follow up the hill, and at the top of the hill you get a lovely view back over the bay, the marina area, and you'll see the ship in the background as well. So that's your easiest, quickest, and most local fun hike. All right, on to Akureyri, which sits snugly at the base of Iceland's longest fjord, which is Eyjafjörður. It's 100 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, so at this point we're just dipping out. You'd think that it was going to be really cold though, but oddly it has a surprisingly mild climate here. It's often called the capital of the north, not because it's huge, but because it's a hub of life in a vast, quiet region. For centuries, this was a seasonal trading post, then it became a fishing town. Now it's a cultural center. It's got a really strong sense of identity. And people here are known for being independent, but really warm, creative yet grounded. It's a place where snow doesn't stop a thing, where community, storytelling, and a coffee culture really keep that northern spirit thriving. And they got these bright orange signs, which are going to help you work your way into town. So I thought I'd show you this view of the port on this occasion, because you know what the gangway is going to look like by this point. It's fairly consistent heading onto the tarmac. But then lots and lots of locals who sort of marshal that way out of the port. Nice, clear to follow signage for where to go for the shore excursions, for where to go if you just want to follow into the city centre. It's 1 kilometre walk to get to the city centre, but it's a nice walk along the waterfront. I'll show you on a map in a moment. And I've put here shops, information, Wi-Fi. Now, I have to be very specific about where you can find that one point of Wi-Fi. You're going to go out here, follow the ropes around, and then you're going to see some wartime sheds. You know the domed sheds? What are they called? Quonset huts. There we go. Okay, new word for me. Thank you. Quonset huts. Now, they've built some shops into those. One of those shops offers Wi-Fi. You will know which one it is by the number of people standing outside looking down. But only one of them has Wi-Fi, so that's where you need to go if you do want. Otherwise, go into town, because you'll find Wi-Fi hotspots in the town centre itself. Let's have a look at it on a map. So the walk is really nice. You're going to walk along the waterfront pretty much the whole way to then get to the town. It's flat, it's smooth, and you get nice views as well. All right, let's get into our top 9. So the Akureyri Botanical Garden is one of the northernmost botanical gardens in the world, proof that life can thrive even just below the Arctic Circle. And it was opened to the public in 1912, starting out its life as a civic park, evolving into a living laboratory. Today, it's home to over 7,000 plant species, including hundreds that somehow survive Iceland's short summers and snowy winters. And locals, they treat it like a sanctuary, a place for quiet walks, for coffee breaks, for spotting that one flower that really shouldn't logically grow here, but does. And it's a beautiful place, quietly defiant, a gentle reminder that nature doesn't always follow the rules. And this is a great cafe area right in the heart of the park. So lots of people will trek on out here to the park. It's a little bit hilly to get there. And then once you're there, you spend a good couple of hours, rest and relax inside the cafe before heading back. Akureyri Kirkja is Akureyri's striking Lutheran church. Sits high above the town. It looks like a modern-day fortress made of concrete and calm, and it was designed by Gudjon Samuelsson, who was the same architect who designed Reykjavik's Hallgrímskirkja, probably the most famous church in Iceland. This one was completed in 1940, and it quickly became a northern landmark. Inside, it's simple. It's really peaceful. It's quite stark, actually, but there's one notable stained glass window that was salvaged from a bombed church in Coventry during World War II. The church organ here is impressive too. 2,900 pipes, plenty of presents. For many, it's the walk up that long staircase that sticks in the memory, a climb from sea to steeple, really, and all of Akureyri just unfolds below you. Last year, they were doing some refurbishments on the stairs, so you had to take the road up. The road up is fun as well, because if you take the road up, then it's called the Road to Education. Wow, very nice. But if you take the road down, it's called the Road to Destruction. And that's because when it got its nickname, the high school students would go down the road to go to the nightclub. But they would go up the road to receive their spiritual education. It's What day are we in? Sunday. It's open if you want to go in and have a service. It's not open as a tourist attraction, but really most people just go for the photo outside. But you can go in to join the service. All right. The Akureyri Art Museum is one of Iceland's leading contemporary art spaces. It's housed in a former dairy building, which somehow feels fitting for a town that blends this tradition with quiet reinvention. And since its opening in 1993, it's become a platform for both established Icelandic artists and emerging voices as well, often with exhibitions that feel very bold, thoughtful, very much rooted in Icelandic landscape and experience. It's not a massive museum, but it punches above its weight. It offers everything: sculpture, photography, conceptual installations, and very much like most of Akureyri, it surprises you by being more than you expected it to be. And if you head out to the Akureyri airport, there's a hidden gem for anyone even mildly curious about flight. It opened in 2000 and it covers the surprisingly rich history of Icelandic aviation, from early propeller planes, battling Arctic weather, to then through to modern air rescue operations, coast guards. You'll find full-size aircraft on display here. They've got a Douglas DC-3 that you can actually climb inside. It's very hands-on, it's well laid out, full of stories about brave pilots, daring landings, and the vital role that air travel has played in connecting remote Icelandic communities. It's practical history, told with a healthy dash of admiration. This is lovely. In Akureyri, even the traffic lights are friendly. Back in 2008, during Iceland's financial crisis, the town swapped the red stop circles on its traffic lights for red hearts, a small gesture that was meant to lift spirits when things were feeling heavy. And it was meant to be temporary, but the locals loved it, and so the hearts have stayed. Now they're a part of the town's identity. They appear not only on the traffic lights, but on signs, souvenirs, on street art. And they're a quiet reminder of resilience, kindness, and choosing optimism even in hard times. In Akureyri, stopping at a red light might actually make you smile. And if you thought the traffic lights were cute, just wait till you see their cuddly crocheted trash cans. I have no idea if this was a local council initiative or just the effects of winter in a really dark and cold place. But the bins are a lot of fun here. And they are well worth stopping for a photo moment. I, for one, had never hugged a bin before arriving in Akureyri. And the medical centre is available for any infections you might pick up from your new grubby friends. So the Akureyri Museum is where you want to go if you want to understand how people actually lived in this northern town over the centuries. It's a history museum, yes, but it's not dusty artifacts. This is told through everyday objects, photographs, reconstructed rooms. It tells the story of fishing families, of merchants, school children, mid-century homeowners. It's housed in a former school building. It's got these beautiful views over the fjord. It hosts temporary exhibitions that dig into everything from local fashion into folklore. It's calm, it's thoughtful, it's a deeply local place. It's not grand, but it's not distant either. It's something that's really woven into daily life. Some of you might be going out here on a tour, but you can go independently as well. Godafoss is one of Iceland's most celebrated waterfalls. Dramatic, beautiful, and steeped in legend. Its name means waterfall of the gods. And the story goes that in the year 1000, a local chieftain threw his pagan idols into the falls after deciding Iceland should adopt Christianity. Whether or not that tale is literal, it captures the site's emotional pull. The water drops about 12 meters in this wide, horseshoe shape, roaring in the summer, but frozen into sculptural silence in the winter. And it's easily accessible from the main road that runs between Akureyri and Mývatn. It never fails to make people stop and stare. And my final tip for Akureyri: Forest Lagoon. It's just across the bridge from Akureyri, and it offers the full Icelandic geothermal spa experience with a twist of pine. Opened in 2022, it's nestled into the hillside above the fjord, surrounded by trees, which is a rare sight in Iceland. They're a key part to this lagoon's charm. The waters are naturally heated, they're drawn from a nearby borehole, and the infinity pools come with sweeping views over the Eyjafjörður. There's a swim-up bar, there's a sauna, a very relaxed, uncrowded feel that the locals really love. This is the kind of place where time slows down, your shoulders will drop, and even the steam seems to carry its own sense of calm. If a geothermal spa is on your list for our time in Iceland, chances are Blue Lagoon is what's been in your mind. That is the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country. And that means a lot of other people know about it as well. It is amazing. I loved it. I stayed there for 4 days, and I was so relaxed. But I was in the private retreat round the corner. The main lagoon, which we went and visited on one of the days, is very, very busy. So it's an amazing thing to go and see. But if you want to really relax, I've got some other suggestions for you coming up as well, this being one of them. So definitely worth considering if you want a more relaxing day rather than a touristy day. Let's put them all on a map. The longer you spend in Iceland, the more you realize, for millennia, people here have found a way to live with things that they don't fully understand. The land shifts, the weather lies, so does the weatherman. The roads disappear, and nobody really knows why your phone dies every time you walk past that particular boulder. But instead of trying to explain everything, they just give it a name, a story, a personality. Not because they believe it changes the facts, but because it changes how you feel about the facts. You can't argue with a landslide, but you can decide it was a troll having a bad day. It sounds odd, but it works. Because sometimes you need a bit of imagination just to make the world make sense. They're not as decoration, but as protection. It's how you deal with darkness, silence, unpredictability. It's how you stay human in the face of things that don't care if you're cold or confused or 5 minutes late to dinner. And that's the bit I take with me from here. Not the lava or the waterfalls or the sheep on the runway, although all of those are excellent, but the mindset, the reminder that imagination isn't a distraction from reality. It's how we survive it. Thank you.